pipe smokers of Ireland. This is the Pipepastor coming to you again. And after a while taking some time off from the pipe smokers' philosophical book of Ecclesiastes, we're jumping back in again at Ecclesiastes chapter 4, 5, and 6. Had a cold snap for a while, but it's a pleasant day today, around 60, 63, 64 here in Fresno, California. And I'm smoking probably my favorite pipe, or my top 5 favorite pipes, my Larry Rausch Special. Larry Rausch's Special is both sandblasted and rusticated. You can see the sandblast real clear here. One of the few pipes that I smoke that has a saddle stem. Saddle stem is this bend right here. And I usually don't like them, but in Larry's I do, because it gives a little bit more clench space in his pipes, which typically he does not have. This is over a $1,500 pipe Larry gave to me for my birthday 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And very kind of him to do so. And I love his pipes. I've got about 4 of them. I'm a spiritual mentor to Larry. He's a fine Christian man. Makes fine pipes. One of the few guys who can charge what he does for rusticated pipes, which most guys, they'll make a rusticated pipe out of some briar that doesn't look aesthetically pleasing as a smooth. But his rustications are so in demand that he doesn't have to worry about that. So great smoker. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess what I'm smoking in my Rausch today. And you're wrong. I'm smoking some capstan that young Aaron Thompson gave me for Christmas. We smoked some of his capstan in honor of Tolkien's birthday, and I liked it so much he got me some. So capstan is very, very good. It's sweet. It's a non-aromatic. I forget all that's in it, but if it's got my approval as a non-aromatic, you know it's good. I'm enjoying it very much. Thank you again, Aaron. Very nice. I must say it makes me look more handsome too, don't you think? So we're talking about some philosophical issues in Ecclesiastes, and I've gone over ad nauseum how you read the book in order not to get pessimistic. It's one of my favorite books, and if you go back over the Pipe Smokers of Ireland videos I did, residence videos I did last year, you go on to my first couple of messages on the book of Ecclesiastes, and you'll find out why. But Ecclesiastes 4, 5, and 6 is dealing with a particular kind of sloth. The sloth is one of the 7 cardinal sins. And in this particular couple of verses in Ecclesiastes, written by the smartest man who's ever lived, and in today's age, information is a chief prize. People spend more money to get information than they do anything else. Just ask Henry Kissinger. Only we got the smartest man that's ever lived, King Solomon, who's given us advice for free. And this is an invaluable couple of verses of Scripture, especially for someone like me who would prefer to be in my head alone rather than with anybody else. I've learned to love fellowship, and I've learned to love companionship. But in my childhood, the way I was broken and the way that I responded to dysfunctionality in my family was I went inside my head, and would prefer to be inside my head looking around up in there. There's a lot of room. Then naturally I would with people. And over the years that's been largely healed, and I have quite a few people that I really enjoy being around. I enjoy being around you folks as well, and wish you were with me. But my default is that especially if anybody hurts me or offends me, or I get tired, I want to isolate myself. One of the reasons why I've read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings 15 times since college days is because it gives me plenty of imagination to walk around inside my head. And thanks to Tolkien. Enjoy him. But in any case, Ecclesiastes 4 talks about a particular kind of slothfulness, actually two kinds. One kind of slothfulness has to do with being lazy when it comes to having friends, making friends, and being with friends, social slothfulness. And the other kind of slothfulness has to do with workaholism. That a workaholic is basically also exhibiting laziness on the part of recreation and leisure. So let's talk about it. I'll look forward to some of your comments, hopefully. Ecclesiastes 4 and verse 5 says, "Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves." Now, a wise man, according to Solomon, is someone who not only understands, has understanding, has knowledge, but knows how to apply it and knows how to tell other people how to apply it. A fool, on the other hand, knows right from wrong, but doesn't apply it, and makes stupid mistakes over and over and over again because he thinks he's wise in his own eyes. The fool folds their hands, or fools folds their hands and ruins themselves. Now, that word ruin is an interesting Hebrew word. You can play with it a little bit. It's one of those words that it's a word picture that's kind of pregnant and it can birth all kinds of ideas, but one of the most accurate translations straight from Hebrew and Greek is the New American Standard Bible. If you want a really accurate Bible, New American Standard Bible or English Standard Version, New International Version is okay, will give you the most accurate. It doesn't flow as beautifully as the King James. That's why I like the New King James rather than just the King James. But you lose some poetry. It doesn't read as poetically. But word for word, you get a really good gist of the original language. But in any case, the New American Standard Bible reads it like this, verse 5, "The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh." So self-ruination, wasting away is the idea. And one of the ways you waste away is by preferring to keep your own company. Not all the time. Of course, there's times for meditation. There's times for personal one-on-one time to think and to ponder and that kind of thing. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about overdrive. We're talking about people who do nothing but gratify themselves in terms of their own hunger to be alone by not putting out the effort to make friends. If you're lazy, in this regard. Although you may have a reason. You got hurt, you took your ball, and you went home. You don't trust people over and over. By escaping people, you really haven't escaped anything. You're still going to end up like a workaholic, basically, with no meaningful friendships, no meaningful feedback, no supportive community. And the fact is, if we were going to apply it to this community, which seldom do pipe smokers have this kind of problem, but some personalities tend to enjoy their pipe and nobody else. Granted, I like to do that too. My pipe's my best friend. Never argues with me, never gives me any problems, never offends. Well, sometimes it offends me, it'll bite me, or it'll spit at me. But overall, if you are poor in being friendly and making friends and being winsome and being convivial and cordial and gregarious as an effort, then you will not have enough meaningful connections because you're too lazy, or you're too cynical, or you're too critical, or judgmental to put forth the effort to connect and commune with people. And as a result, you're slowly dying of self-cannibalism. You're being eaten up on the inside and you don't know it because you're not being stimulated. You're atrophying. Solomon also wrote another book when he was younger called the Book of Proverbs. And in Proverbs chapter 18:24, he writes, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly." And that takes an effort. It takes skill. It takes hospitality. Willingness to listen to people. But a lazy man will spend more time sleeping or playing video games than he does in making friends. And both spiritually and socially and physically, he'll end up wasting away. So Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes warns against that. He goes on in verse 6, and he says something rather astounding. Listen to this. He says, "Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and the chasing after the wind." Remember, that phrase, chasing after the wind, comes from the Hebrew word hevel, Hebel, but it's spelled as if the B was in V, hevel. And what hevel means is pursuing something, thinking that it will be substantial or significant or meaningful, only in the end to find it's just air. It's all that effort to get nothing in return. It's unprofitable, unmeaningful, unsubstantial, unweighty, a vapor, a smoke. And Solomon is saying that you could toil too hard, you can work too hard to make more and end up with less. I mean, we're supposed to fill only a small part of our lives with work, not the whole. We're supposed to work to live, not live to work. And that's what Solomon's getting at when talking about two handfuls versus one handful. Greed motivates us to think that if one handful's good, two handfuls will gain even more. We can hold on to even more. But Solomon is speaking in both quantitative and qualitative terms, and he's saying that the difference between the small amounts one can hold in the open palm of one hand versus large portions that can be clutched between two clenched fists happens to be existential. What do you really end up with? You may end up with more money and more stuff, but will you be better off? Will you have lived a more meaningful, a more happy, a more content life? And what the wisdom of King Solomon is saying is that enough can be gotten with one hand, plus adequate rest, adequate leisure, adequate recreation, and more than enough can be gotten with just one hand with those things in there, rather than with two hands with double the stress and no rest, no friendships, no meaningful relationships. You may have relationships, but your relationship with your kids is ruined. Your relationship with your wife is ruined. The song Cat in the Cradle is all about that. If you've never heard that song, you need to hear it. Cats in the Cradle. In fact, when I post this, I'll post a song with it. I have to keep the pipe lit. If for no other reason than to prove to one of our residents, one of my favorite ones, Michael Rizzo, that it's possible to have a conversation, keep your pipe going. So Michael, pay attention. I like to tease that guy a lot. He's good people. And I really appreciate Michael's residence post of last week as a result of that, because he's a good illustration of a friendly kind of guy who values people, values relationships, wants to be as non-offensive and as tolerant as he can. And when he can't be, he will, in a decent and respectful way, take a few steps back from relationships that prove to be unhealthy for him, that take pieces out of his soul. And I really appreciated that. Loved what he had to say, because what he had to say was good, but also even more so because he was saying it, and he's got such a kind and good soul that his words simmer and bake and marinate and are on the back burner. And when they come out, they are meaningful, they are weighty. Michael is a great illustration of someone who understands the truth of verse 5 and 6. Ecclesiastes 4. So, better is a one-handed 40-hour week than a double-fisted 80-hour week, because nothing's left over after that 80-hour week that could put into making true and good and lasting friendships. Solomon also wrote again in Proverbs. He says in Proverbs chapter 15:17, better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a dinner of fattened roasted ox in hatred or strife, bitterness, resentment. Some of you have gone through a divorce have understood that divorces just don't happen. It's a long and painful, dreadful time of growing alienation, growing estrangement, growing resentment. And dinners had in a family that's developing that kind of estrangement and alienation. It's torture. Working all day long and coming home to someone that's supposed to bring rest to your soul, and is just the exact opposite. Is energy stealing and life stealing. It's vampiric. And that's why it's important we put adequate time in not only vetting our relationships and making sure the people that we are in relationship with provide healthy relationship with, but that we keep those relationships free of conflict by communicating, by resolving our conflicts, by thinking the best of the person and working with them as we possibly can. Oh, doggone it. I just pulled a Michael Rizzo. Excuse me for a minute. Mike? I'm a hypocrite. Okay. But Solomon is dealing with something else here that's even more of a main thought than friendship, and that is the concept of play, recreation, and leisure. Because you need that too. In fact, one of the things mostly accomplished in a relationship is play, recreation, and leisure. And work and leisure have an entirely different relationship, at least explained relationship 200 years ago than it does now. Using pre-industrialized Europe for an example, Thomas Anderson explains the difference. This is what he wrote. This will keep me from playing the trombone. He says, in medieval Europe, holidays, holy days, etc., took up 1/3 of the year in England, and almost 5 months out of the year in Spain. Even for peasants, this was true. Although work was from sunrise to sunset, it was casual, able to be interrupted for a chat with a friend, a long lunch, a visit to the pub, or fishing hole, none of which a modern factory office worker can dare do. The fact is, American workers of the mid-20th century, with their 40-hour week, were just catching up with medieval counterparts, and American workers at the end of this century have fallen behind their medieval ancestors because our incredible growth in technology has not resulted in a corresponding increase in our need for leisure, or in meeting the need for leisure. The American way of life has no place for the serenity of meaningful, leisurely activity, for contemplation, for celebration, for festivity. These things are disrespected. They're not honored. You know, the Greeks had a very negative view of work, and in fact, they didn't even have a word for work. Rather, they had something that explained work in a negative fashion. Work was unleisure, and that was their word for work, unleisure. So accordingly, the Greek philosophers understood that work and toil needed to be balanced with leisure. In fact, work and toil were for one purpose, and that was for leisure. That men worked, the philosophers thought, in order to enjoy leisure. Recreation, on the other hand, refers to activity that amuses us or stimulates us. It stimulates our body. It stimulates all of our senses. Like swimming, going to the park, camping, exercising at the gym, hiking, water skiing, golfing. Recreation was something usually done outside the home, whereas leisure was done inside or close to the home. Aristotle said the goal of working is leisure or play. And yet it's a tendency of many in our culture, in our generation, to categorize leisure in the same category as being idle or being lazy. And while it's true that hard work represents the cure to one of the 7 cardinal sins of sloth, the despair of idleness and boredom that comes with working with double-fisted motivation and intent defeats the purpose of working to cure idleness. If you work with one hand, Solomon was saying, that defeats leisure, or defeats sloth, as well as leaving room for another sloth-destroying activity, which is leisure, recreation, and play. In fact, idleness is understood, according to Greek philosophers, as the utter absence of leisure. Idleness renders leisure impossible. It's the utter absence of play. It's the very opposite of recreation. It can be defined as the incapacity one has to enjoy leisure. Well, I think the big idea doggone it! This is what I get for calling out Michael Rizzo, see? Dag-nabbit. Actually, it's not my fault. This is what you get for smoking a non-aromatic. Black Gold doesn't give me this problem. But here's the big idea. The extremes of being too busy, working too hard, working too much, is the same as the of being too lazy. It amounts to the same thing. Working too much or being lazy both amount to the same thing, and that is apathy, which is non-feeling, toward the fundamental questions of life and the result of the technological age in which we live. As a result, men lack the ability to think rightly about the transcendent things of life, and they've been lulled to sleep by that which is banal and boring and meaningless. According to Piper, leisure might best be understood as a form of play, a form of non-willful activity that is meaningful in itself and has no rational purpose or measurable usefulness. It's more than a form of relaxation or entertainment. It is input. It is recreating. It is restoration. In fact, play should be viewed as an essential structure or condition of the human condition or existence. Eugene Fink wrote this: play is not only a peripheral manifestation of human life, it is not contingent. It is not a contingent phenomena that emerges upon occasion. In essence, it comes under the meaning behind human existence. In other words, you can tell a good deal more about a person who is and what that person is really like in their nature by observing them at play rather than observing them at work. This is why some of the most intelligent men in the world have been pipe smokers. The most deep thinkers, the most depth in theologians, inventors, statesmen, men that have advanced and moved the ball uphill, that have made society more civilized, more humane, been pipe smokers. In fact, smoking a pipe fits the very definition of leisure. Therefore, we work in order to be able to smoke our pipes. The meaning of life, smoking a pipe. The meaning of life can be found in smoking a pipe. Significance can be found smoking a pipe. Better friendships can be had smoking a pipe. Think about it. And log in, let me know what you think. This is the Pipe Pastor Talk coming to you once again for the Pipe Smokers of Ireland. Sláinte.